Again, everyone, welcome back to A Backwards Glance. It's time for some more Southern flavored stories from in and around Chambers County. As you can see, I'm wearing a little bit of a uniform here. We have a YouTube channel and we cover our local high school's sports events. Tonight will be our coaches show to review last week's football game and talk about the football season. And as you can also see, I'm wearing a really gaudy and large championship ring. These young men are going after their third consecutive state title. And they're coming off a big loss, an emotional loss last week. We journeyed down to Tallahassee, played a great team in Maclay School, and came away as a loser, 38-28. But we didn't come away as losers from our atmosphere and our optimism and our belief in ourselves. We lost a football game. And I usually don't sport this ring around very much. Might be the first time I've ever worn it in public, as a matter of fact. So I'm going to try to make sure I get myself around the players and talk about this ring, the one before it, and the one that might be down the road. I want them to make sure that they lose their focus on last week and put their focus on tomorrow night and the next two after that. One thing I can tell you is this. I learned a long time ago from a number of coaches, you cannot play last week's game. And another thing I learned is you can't play with people who aren't on the team. You can't play with people who don't want to be completely disciplined. You have to play with the talent, the discipline, and the commitment that you have at your disposal as a coach and as a unit, as a team unit. I think we're really lucky in both those areas. We have really good, talented kids. We have great support groups, cheerleaders, dance team. The people who run our facilities, they cook burgers and hot dogs. They run the concession stands. They take tickets. They make sure that everything at that school runs well on these big Friday nights when we entertain people at our location. The other thing I learned from some coaches early in my life was how to use the competitive lessons from football and other sports beyond just school. I learned from a great man, Coach Henry Nettles, when I was in junior high school. He was the varsity head coach. He taught our group about hard work and discipline. And he taught us that with those things, good times would come down the road. And he wasn't around with us to share that, unfortunately, and we desperately missed him, but we were lucky. We had another great guy take us forward in high school, and we had 2 good years with Coach Pugh. And in our second year as a football team, we made it to the first round of the playoffs. We went 8-2, the 7th ranked team in the AISA, just our second year. Now, my buddies who are still around from that team, the 4 of us, Neil, Randy, myself, and Tom Farr, we all are very thankful for our days together and the friendships that we have. And we're all pretty good buddies and we still remember those good times. You know that old guys together, when they talk about football, are going to work their way back to glory days. And that's fine because that's a part of the lesson and the benefit of playing competitive sports, whether it's women's sports, men's sports, no matter what, those lessons apply. So we're going to go out and try to do our part in reviewing games and talking about next week and maybe pumping up the players just a little bit if we can. But let's get on to the main reason for our channel, which is looking back on events and stories that you might find entertaining. I know that I certainly find these stories really entertaining as I pull them back from my memory. Today I'm going to talk about an event that took place with 2 of my favorite people, my Uncle Larry and my cousin Bob. And a shout out to Uncle Larry. He's not feeling real well. He's in the hospital down in Opelika. So if he sees this, we love you, Unc. Get well. Got to see you soon. But from there, let's go into the story. Back when we were maybe 9 or 10 years old, Larry's 6 years older. And Larry, as I've said before, was a great planner, a great thinker. And something got in his mind about building parachutes. Yep, that's what he wanted to create, was a parachute. Now, my Uncle Larry was capable of making basically anything. He could take things apart, put them back together, or just create something. Well, he had an Italian motor scooter, the Lambretta with the shift on the knob I may have mentioned before. Well, Uncle Larry decided he could make a drag chute for that bike. And if we got it going fast enough down a little hill that was near my grandmother's house, someone sitting on the back of the motor scooter holding onto him could deploy that chute, and it would just steadily and slowly stop us. Well, that was the idea. That was the premise of this project. I guess you figure out pretty quickly who was that person who was going to sit on the back of the motorcycle and hold on to the parachute. That'd be me. So here's how it went. We found a relatively small tarp, and it had the metal hole, metal surrounded holes. And Uncle Larry tied all sorts of cords to it and folded this thing up very carefully. And he got the cords put together so they could wrap around my waist in a very neat and even way. And it took forever for us to build this thing. So he carefully folded it up and put it together, and I was holding it behind my back. Got the motor scooter warmed up, and my cousin Bob was assigned to come along behind us on his bicycle and get a look at this whole superb event from that direction. Okay. We mounted up, and Larry said to me, okay, slide back onto the spare tire. It was just a round, small motor scooter tire, and it was just past the back seat. It just kind of hung out over the fender. Okay. He said, do it. I did it. I slid back there, and I've got my feet forward, just sticking up on the back of the little pedals that he used to drive the motorcycle, our motor scooter. Well, up the hill we went, we turned around. We made a couple of practice runs to make sure we got a lot of speed. And it was a pretty sharp angle, and I would guess the hill was 60, 70 yards long. So if we threw that thing near the bottom, we're going to have some speed coming up. Sounded like a great idea. Larry emphasized how he was going to sit back in his seat, and I was going to wrap my arm around him, hold on to the parachute, and when I threw it, wrap around him with both arms and hold on tight. That's how we would be slowed by the parachute. You can just see how many things might go wrong with this. Nevertheless, up the hill we go. Larry gets this thing wound up and ready, and we take off. And I mean, we are moving. We get about 3/4 of the way, and here I am holding on with this package in my hand, and he goes, throw it. Well, I flipped it up in the air, and believe it or not, it executed perfectly. It was a precise deployment of a drag chute. And you know what it did? It drug my butt off the back of that thing like that. I went from the spare tire, because when it deployed, I was about halfway around trying to connect my hands to hold on. It literally jerked me in a sitting position from that spare tire, and I hit the asphalt and gravel road in a very seated position and proceeded to bounce quite a ways before rolling over a little bit and getting wound up into the cords. And Larry's scooting along. Now, I almost got run over by my cousin Bob, who's churning his bike down the hill. It was a disaster. It was an absolute disaster. I'm amazed I didn't break an arm or a leg or whatever. So here's the real payoff to this. Now, it is failed. It has failed miserably. So my Uncle Larry realizes what's happened, turns around and comes back. And he comes back to me, and he stops and he goes, you all right? And I'm like, I don't know. He goes, all right, well, let's wrap it up. We're going to do it again. I remember very clearly getting up, figuring out how to get the cords off, throwing the cords down the ground and saying, I'm not doing it again. I'm going home. And I proceeded to leave. I know I frustrated him that day, probably made him a little angry at me, but I walked a little bit gingerly because, boy, I'll tell you, I felt that over the course of the next few days. It was not exactly our most shining moment of engineering and creating different things. This only got worse because of the failure. Uncle Larry did not take defeat lightly, and he was not about to give up. But he figured out that the motor scooter and all the moving parts weren't going to work very well. So he created another parachute. This one he made out of dry cleaner bags. That's right. Think about it. They're rectangular. They're layered plastic. And we collected those things for 6 weeks. Everybody we knew had dry cleaning, so we just asked for their bags, and we kept getting, we had a layer of dry cleaner bags this thick. And we were laminating them is what we were doing, just sticking them on top of each other. Well, Larry got busy and he did all the rope technology, measured things out from the corners, to make sure that it all worked. And he didn't really tie anything in the middle because it was a long piece and it would disrupt the airflow, I think is what he told us. Anyway, he designed the parachute. Now he needed someone to hold the parachute or wear the parachute. This time it was my cousin Bob because he was much lighter than I was. We tied the parachute around the, I think, belt loops in cousin Bob's jeans or shorts, whatever he was wearing. And we made them long enough so that he could, again, pitch it in the air. It would open, catch, and he would just float down, just like the military parachutes. Okay, we talked him into climbing up the stairs to my Aunt Gail's second-story apartment, which was in the backyard of my grandmother's house. You can see this is not going well. So we're looking at it, and Bob is getting ready to go, and he's climbing, or he's going to jump over the rail. Larry goes, no, you can't do that. Climb up on the rail. That way, when you jump, you'll have a little more height, and it'll be a smoother, deployment. He said, do it just like me. Bob said, okay. He climbs up on this rail. We're both standing down on the ground, and Larry's giving a countdown. He said, now just throw it straight up. It'll open up and you'll float down. Well, Bob was true to his word and bailed off the railing of the second-story apartment. He threw the dry cleaner bag parachute in the air, and once again, it deployed perfectly. I mean, it was as if Larry was a parachute manufacturer. It opened, and then it disintegrated. It tore into a million pieces, and it just shredded the strings off. And my cousin Bob came down like a ton of bricks. He came down like a rock that had been thrown off the top of that railing. He hit the ground, and I mean hard. This thing was probably, I don't know, how tall is the second story? 20 feet, plus 3 or 4 on the rail. He hit the ground, and I mean, it was a big oomph, and I'm lucky, we were very lucky to break an ankle or a leg or something. So he hits the ground, he can't move, he can't breathe. And to this day, I can see those dry cleaner bags were all just, it looked like a cartoon. It looked like the Wile E. Coyote cartoons when things are just floating down as someone is smashed into the ground. But we survived. We survived to plot more projects, and we had some other big ones just that summer. I'll tell you more about those later on. But I want to give my Uncle Larry credit. I'll tell you, his engineering and his design was great. There was just a little problem with the materials and maybe with the size and weight of the subjects that he was working with. But it was just another part of great times that we had as kids. Thank God we survived all of them and nobody got seriously hurt. We will come back in a week or so and come up with a few more stories. We'll talk about some other adventures with these two crazy guys and other people. We'll do that shortly. But until we get back together again, I hope you all have a really good week. Go out and have some fun, spend some time with your family and your friends, and take care of yourselves. We will see you again soon. Bye-bye.